Discover the stormy secret that changes everything. The fluorescent lights flickered intermittently, casting a cold, harsh glare over the cramped news office. Emma's heartbeat pounded louder than the clatter of keyboards as she stood rooted by her cluttered desk. Her auburn hair clung damply to the nape of her neck, a tangled shadow under the sterile ceiling light. Outside, rain hammered relentlessly against the windows like a furious army, the chaotic rhythm a mirror to her unraveling composure. "Emma, are you even listening?" The editor's voice cut through the storm, a blade sharp, unforgiving. She flinched but kept her gaze fixed on the computer screen, fingers frozen above the keyboard. "You published the wrong date on the city council piece. Rookie mistake. Again. How do you expect to make it in this business if you can't even proofread?" Emma's cheeks burned, her throat tightening. The room felt suddenly colder, the humid breath of rain pressing in through the cracked window like accusation. Her bright green eyes darted upward, momentarily locking with the editor's steely Galarian inspoken verdict passed without mercy. "Fix it. Now." His voice was clipped as he turned away, dismissing her like a nuisance to be swept under the corporate carpet. Emma's lips pressed into a thin line. She exhaled slowly, the bitter taste of shame rising like bile. Around her, the office buzzed with busy professionals whose indifferent eyes skirted past her humiliation, their murmurs folding her isolated moment into the fabric of everyday indifference. Her hands twitched, longing to escape the confines of the room of expectations too high and support too scarce. The weight of failure bore down on her, pressing intimately against her ribs. As she gathered her things, her vivid red umbrella caught her eye folded carelessly on the chair beside her. It was an outlier of color in the monochrome chaos, a defiant splash of individuality in a world that seemed bent on suffocating it. The umbrella was more than protection against the city's endless downpour. It was a symbol of who she refused to become, a faceless cog among many. Stepping into the tempest outside, Emma's umbrella popped open, a vivid flame against the steel-gray torrent. The rain sluiced forcefully against her jacket and face, yet beneath the storm, a fragile resolve took root. The city thrummed with life. Headlights reflected off slick sidewalks, neon signs buzzed in electric urgency, and distant sirens wove their melancholy song through the streets. Emma moved with a tentative steadiness, her silhouette a red beacon flickering in the downpour. As she disappeared into the rain-soaked labyrinth of the city, the editor's criticism echoed not just in her ears but woven into every oppressive droplet that slid down her umbrella's canopy. A profound loneliness settled beside her, a shadow mingling with the wet streets and breaking light. And yet, her footsteps carried a whisper of defiance, a story yet untold, a spark waiting to ignite beyond the storm's furious grasp. The rain fell faster now, a cascading symphony, as Emma's vivid red umbrella bobbed resolutely against the crimson-tinted wet streets, a fragile emblem of hope threaded through the anonymity of the city's ceaseless night. Emma stood beneath the flickering neon sign of the diner, the rain tracing cold rivulets down her bright red umbrella, its vibrant color a desperate splash of warmth against the gray cityscape. Her breath fogged in shallow bursts as she struggled to silence the storm raging inside, the sting of her editor's words still searing beneath her skin. The distant hum of traffic and pedestrian footsteps blurred into a dissonant symphony, echoing the pounding rhythm of doubt and frustration in her chest. She stepped onto the slick pavement, boots sticky against the wet asphalt. The city's steel and glass towers loomed like indifferent giants, their reflections fractured in puddles scattered like shards of a broken mirror. Emma's grip tightened on the umbrella's handle. It was not just protection from the rain but a fragile shield against the endless cascade of sneers, dismissals, and whispered doubts that pursued her. Each flickering street lamp seemed to spotlight her solitude, casting long shadows that flickered like ghosts at her heels. Her vivid green eyes searched the shifting faces around her, unseeing, unfeeling, and the ache of invisibility deepened. The weight of small failures and the yawning chasm of unfulfilled potential threatened to drown the fragile flame of determination. She tried to steady her breath, to summon the courage to push through the fog of self-reproach. The city wasn't a place for softness or hesitation. It was a realm where the sharp thrived and the uncertain were swallowed whole. She had to find a story, a way out, a spark that would break through the monotony and disinterest. The rain drummed steadily, the cold seeping through her jacket, reminiscent of the piercing loneliness settling in her bones. The muffled sound of a distant siren, the hurried shuffle of feet beneath Umbrella's life pulsed relentlessly, uncaring and indifferent. Emma's eyes fixed on the intersection ahead, where a man in a soaked trench coat hurried beneath a flickering streetlight. There was something enigmatic in the angle of his head, the sharp contour of a jaw barely visible beneath the downpour. She hesitated, the red umbrella dipping lower as she lingered on the possibility of a story hidden within the city's pulse. A flicker of resolve sparked deep in her chest, fragile but unmistakable. The editor's harsh reprimands still echoed, but beneath them, a quieter voice whispered of untapped strength and the stories yet untold. Emma's lips pressed together in a line of determination. The city's rain mixed with distant thunder, the sky opening slightly, casting a muted glow over wet stone and neon-lit faces. Emma lifted her chin, the umbrella shielding a stubborn flame within her refusal to vanish into the gray expanse of forgotten dreams. As she stepped forward, the puddles rippling beneath her boots reflected not just the city's cold light but a flicker of something else, a whisper of possibility, a delicate promise shimmering beneath the storm. The storm deepened, rain cascading from the sky in heavy, unrelenting sheets that transformed the city's streets into rivers of shimmering reflections, neon signs glowing like lost stars on the slick asphalt. Emma's red umbrella was the only vibrant splash amidst the slate-gray deluge, a small beacon of defiantly burning color in the monochrome world. Her breath came in short, misted bursts as she navigated the chaotic symphony of honking horns, splashing boots, and the endless cascade of water. The editor's scathing words echoed in her mind, a bitter undertow beneath the pounding rain. Doubt gnawed at her resolve, threatened to extinguish the last flicker of hope. She ducked beneath the narrow awning, just as the thunder rolled overhead in a distant growl, and waited, the city swelling around her in a wash of sound and shadow. Her emerald eyes scanned the crowd, searching for a sign of direction, of safety, of possibility. Each face in the blur was a ghost of dismissal, a mirror of rejection. The city seemed to conspire with the storm to swallow her whole. Then, from the swirl of a tempest-twisted coat and umbrella, he emerged, a silhouette carved sharply against the neon haze. Vincenzo. His eyes, dark and knowing, fixed on hers, a spark igniting across the deluge. Without a word, he stepped closer, their umbrellas meeting, merging into a single halo of crimson protection. The rain softened where their covers joined, a fragile sanctuary amid the storm's fury. The world around them fell away, the hurry, the noise, the biting cold replaced by a charged silence pulsing with possibility and peril. Emma's heart thudded unevenly, threaded with fear and fierce curiosity. This stranger embodied danger and desire all at once, a riddle wrapped in shadows and silk. Words hovered unspoken, only the rhythm of the rain on their umbrellas dictated time. "Come," Vincenzo murmured, his voice a low promise blending with the storm's wail. They moved together down rain-slick streets, under flickering street lamps and midnight marquees, the city's duality unraveling a landscape of despair and hope intertwined. Emma's red umbrella bobbed steadily beside his dark figure, a symbol of protection and individuality amidst ceaseless chaos. Their shared steps beat a quiet cadence of defiance against a world that threatened to erase them both. The night breathed close, alive with whispered secrets and unseen danger, but beneath the tempest, a spark had been lit. Emma's eyes, bright and wary, reflected the city's fractured glow, the weight of failures past slowly transforming into the pulse of a story waiting to be told. Above them, storm clouds began to thin, revealing slivers of silver moonlight, a tentative sigh of solace. The red umbrella, vibrant and resolute, shielded something greater than rain. It sheltered the fragile beginnings of courage and connection in a city designed to drown both. And so, beneath the fractured sky and the fading storm, Emma stepped forward, the night alive with twisted promises, her heart caught between fear and the thrilling promise of the unknown. The rain persisted, a relentless cascade that blurred the city into moody watercolors and shattered reflections. Emma moved through the drenched streets with a determination threaded by tension. Her red umbrella stubbornly bright against the gray wash, a beacon amid the indifferent crush of rain-soaked crowds. The distant rumble of thunder intertwined with the steady patter on pavement, underscoring the gravity of every step she took. She clutched a small notepad, the edges curled and damp from months of chasing stories that never quite caught fire. Her mind raced through fragments of overheard conversations and shadowed figures, the whispers that might unmask Vincenzo's world if pursued with enough grit. Each lead was a thread tangled in danger and secrecy, but Emma felt a surge beneath the doubt, a cautious fire fueled by desperation and rising hope. The neon signs flickered erratically as she crossed avenues slick with rain, their fractured light dancing on the wet streets like shards of a fractured dream. Steam rose in lazy curls from cracks in the sidewalks, mingling with the mist to cloak the city in tension and promise. Emma paused beneath a flickering street lamp, pressing her hand to the rough metal post, inhaling the sharp scent of ozone and wet concrete, sensory anchors in a maze of uncertainty. Her phone buzzed, a terse vibration cutting through the storm's symphony. A message glowed, a tip-off about a whispered meeting Vincenzo was rumored to hold. Fear prickled at her skin even as adrenaline tightened her grip on the umbrella. This was a risk that could finally give her the story she craved or bury her beneath shadows she was ill-prepared to face. Emma's voice, low and edged with strain, barely broke the rhythm of the rain. "I have to see this through. No matter the cost." The streets narrowed, funneling her toward the underbelly of the city where ornate facades slipped into chipped paint and shadowed alleys. The smell of rain-damp asphalt gave way to the acrid tang of exhaust and distant tobacco smoke. Figures darted in and out of doorways, glances darted sharp and fleeting, each one a question, a warning. At the mouth of a dimly lit alley, Emma hesitated. Her heart thundered fiercely in her chest, an uneven drumbeat mingled with the city's pulse. The red of her umbrella was a stark flag against the muted deafness surrounding her, a testament to the fragile defiance she embodied. A silhouette emerged from the Foga man whose presence seemed to slice through the humid night with dangerous grace. Emma's breath caught, eyes widening with both fascination and hesitation. The city's cruelty and vitality crystallized in this moment, a dance between light and darkness writ large. This could be the break I've been chasing, she thought, the edges of fear sharpening into resolve. But as she stepped forward, the flicker of streetlight revealed eyes that held secrets deeper than any she had dared confront. The rain didn't lessen. It intensified, a curtain drawn tight between her former doubts and the perilous path ahead. Emma's steps faltered briefly, the ominous weight of the underworld pressing close. Yet within her, a fierce certainty emerged that within the darkest rain, even a scarlet umbrella could not only survive but blaze. The city's heartbeat thrummed louder as she vanished into the shadowed embrace of the alley, the story unfolding with every uncertain footfall. And in that sharpening silence, the hunt truly began. The night had deepened into a thick velvet, punctuated only by the intermittent flashes of neon that threw distorted reflections onto rain-slicked streets. Emma's red umbrella, now betraying her by leaking through with cold droplets, was clutched desperately as she navigated the labyrinth of alleys and side streets. Each step reverberated within her like a heartbeat, quickening as she inched closer to the dangerous world Vincenzo inhabited. The city felt aliena, place of looming shadows and whispered threats. The brightness she had clung to before flickered in the suffocating darkness. Fear wrapped around her like the night air, cold and penetrating. Emma paused beneath the meager shelter of a fire escape, her breath visible in the bitter air. Her phone vibrated sharply in her pocket, a text from an anonymous source, warning her that tonight would be risky. Her thumb hovered over the screen, indecision battling the surge of determination. This story was what she wanted, what she needed to redeem herself in a world that had already dismissed her. The memory of her editor's scorn clawed at her resolve, an echo fighting the embers of hope she tried to stoke. Almost making herself look like a fool again, she pressed forward. At the intersection of a shadowed street, a group of men lingered in the dim glow from a flickering street lamp. Their presence was a silent storm, the intensity in their eyes unmistakable. Emma's heart hammered against her ribcage, yet curiosity propelled her closer to the perilous edge she'd only glimpsed before. Her fingers wrapped tighter around the umbrella's handle, knuckles white, as she observed the coded exchanges and clandestine nods. This was Vincenzo's world, gritty, brutal, and unfathomably seductive. Suddenly, a sharp noise shattered the tenuous stillness. A shout, a scuffle, boots splashing through puddles nearby. Emma ducked instinctively behind a crumbling brick wall, breath caught in her throat. Her pulse raced, every sound magnified in the night's oppressive silence. The confrontation swelled, violence almost erupting as shadowed figures clashed. Emma trembled but remained rooted, her green eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. She realized that her pursuit of the truth was no longer just professional, it had become inevitable, binding her to this darker world. Retreat was impossible. After moments that stretched like hours, the tension eased. The night swallowed the participants, leaving only the echo of distant sirens and dripping rain to mark the aftermath. Emerging cautiously, Emma pulled her soaked umbrella tighter. Her chest was tight, adrenalized yet raw, a part of her mourning the lost innocence that might never return. Her phone buzzed again, this time an image, blurry yet chilling. Vincenzo, framed by shadows, eyes sharp, unyielding. The message was clear: you are deeper in than you realize. Emma shivered but didn't close the phone. Her fingers hovered briefly over the screen, a silent vow beneath the torrential rain. I can't back down now, she whispered, voice firm yet fragile. The city around her hummed, a living beast weaving stories of power, passion, and peril. And beneath the relentless rain, the red umbrella stood as a solitary blaze, a flickering defiance against the creeping darkness. But the night was far from over. And in the shadows, eyes watched, waiting for the next move. The tension tightened like a noose, the path ahead uncertain, the stakes rising with every heartbeat. A sudden crackle nearby caught her attention. A package, mysterious and unmarked, dropped softly at her feet. The package was heavy with the weight of secrets. Emma's breath hitched, the story shifting beneath her grasp, pulling her into depths far darker than she imagined. The rain had not ceased, but the storm's fury had lifted into a haunting quietness that permeated the city streets. Emma stood on a rain-slicked rooftop, the cold rain drip drying from her vibrant red umbrella. The canopy, once a symbol of protection and individuality, now felt heavy, weighted by the burden of revelations and mistrust. The city's usual cacophony was muffled, replaced by the distant chime of a broken street lamp and the hollow sighs of the night wind weaving through the concrete canyons. Her emerald eyes, sharp and searching, flicked through the notes in her trembling hands, fingerprints smudging the ink beneath the wan light. The truth she had uncovered: Vincenzo's unyielding grip on a world built on blood and shadows lashed through her aspirations like a jagged blade. The faces she'd once admired in her mind now blurred into dangerous specters, their loyalty paid in whispers and violence. Even as the city flickered beneath neon halos, her heart was fractured, dripped by the intimacy of betrayal and the stark isolation of impending danger. The vivid red of her umbrella, once defiantly bright, now stood out as a lone flame in a sea of gray, pulsating with the fierce, flickering light of desperate hope. A sudden knock at her apartment door shattered the fragile silence. She hesitated, breath shallow. The heavy weight of uncertainty cloaked every muscle, her body taut with the memory of threats tangled in Vincenzo's world. When she glimpsed the shadow beyond the door, a courier placing an unmarked package in her hand, her pulse thundered. Returning inside swiftly, Emma opened the package with fingers numb to hesitation and dread. Within lay a bundle of photographs, documents, and a small USB drive, accompanied by a single handwritten note. Some truths are darker than the night itself. The photographs were chilling. Candid shots of meetings she hadn't known to exist, faces etched with menace, alliances forged in secrecy. The documents outlined illicit dealings, betrayals intertwined with power and blood. The data on the USB hinted at an inner layer of Vincenzo's empire, exposing the corrosive underbelly beneath the charismatic surface. Emma's breath hitched as realization dawned. The man she'd felt drawn to, the stranger who had sheltered her beneath his own darkness, was both her greatest story and deepest peril. The line between pursuit and obsession began to blur, tightening around her like a noose. Her voice was barely a whisper, struggling against the torrent in her chest. How far will I go? How much can I risk? Trembling, she closed the umbrella and watched the rain continue its relentless fall outside the window, a cleansing deluge washing over a city that seemed indifferent to the fate of those caught in its shadows. The storm inside her roared, casting long, jagged shadows across the room as she grappled with the question threatening to consume her. Is it possible to love someone who embodies both danger and salvation? Emma's gaze drifted to the city's fractured skyline, where light struggled through the remnants of the storm, a symbolic echo of her own fractured hope reluctant to be extinguished. The package lay heavy on the table, its contents a Pandora's box that had thrust open doors she might never close. And beneath the shroud of night, Emma prepared to step fully into a world where passion and peril were entwined, where every truth uncovered carried the weight of both redemption and ruin. The city whispered its secrets in rain and shadow, and Emma listened, heart pounding with the perilous promise of what was to come. The city was muted beneath a slate-gray sky that pressed down like a suffocating veil. Rain fell in ceaseless sheets, blurring the harsh edges of towering buildings into ghosts that loomed over empty streets. Emma stood alone on the slick sidewalk, her vivid red umbrella closed and cradled tightly against her side. The piercing chill of the storm seeped into her bones, cold, relentless, and as unforgiving as the truth unraveling around her. Her breath came in shallow, uneven gasps, each inhale laced with sharp regrets and unspoken fears. The weight of what she had learned, a devastating revelation that Vincenzo, the enigmatic man who stirred her heart and shadowed her thoughts, was entwined in webs of violence and deception, pressed heavily behind her eyes. Hope sputtered dimly, threatened by betrayal's dark tide. The once chaotic pulse of the city now felt ominous and slow, like the ticking before a collapse. The glow of neon signs flickered weakly against the rain, their light diffusing in the mist like distant, fading promises. The distant hum of traffic became a monotonous drone, a cold soundtrack to her mounting isolation. Emma's auburn hair was damp and plastered to her forehead, strands clinging like whispered secrets she wished to deny. Her green eyes, once bright with curiosity and emboldened ambition, now swirled with conflicting shadows, trust eroded, fear creeping forward, and a raw vulnerability laid bare. She moved forward, steps hesitant yet relentless, as if propelled by a force both desperate and doomed. The city's indifferent murmur roared in her ears, indifferent to the fracture opening inside her. Her mind replayed moments of connection and doubt, warmth and warning, as she traced the contours of an invisible fault line splitting her world apart. The man she longed to understand had become the architect of her torment, and in that realization, a crushing loneliness enveloped her, a void where certainty once lived. A sudden gust tossed the edge of a newspaper fluttering past, its headlines screaming warnings she could no longer escape. The streets, slick with rain, reflected fractured silhouettes that seemed distorted mirrors of herself, fragmented and adrift. She paused beneath a street lamp, its light flickering faintly as if weary of casting illumination on truths too painful to bear. Emma's gaze fell to the glistening pavement, where a single drop of water clung to the tip of her umbrella before descending slowly, a fragile echo of her fleeting hope. Words caught in her throat, the silence thick and pressing. How did it come to this? was the unvoiced question shadowing her every breath. The city around her seemed to close in, the narrow alleys and rain-washed walls echoing the spiraling darkness pulling at her soul. The vivid red of her umbrella was now a lone beacon struggling against an engulfing gloom. As the storm intensified, thunder rolling ominously over the restless skyline, Emma's figure shrank beneath the weight of betrayal and lost dreams. The fierce spark that had once glimmered within was dimmed, muted by the cold grasp of despair. Her steps faltered, the path between the lingering hope and encroaching ruin growing perilously thin. The emotional scaffolding began to crumble. And in that restless, rain-drenched night, Emma felt the fragile threads of her world begin to unravel, ushering her toward a precipice where fear, passion, and uncertainty collided in raw, unyielding silence. The night sank deeper, shrouding the city in a suffocating cloak of darkness. Emma sat alone on the cold, rain-slicked ledge of a deserted rooftop, her vivid red umbrella collapsed beside her like a discarded beacon. The relentless drumming of rain blurred the cityscape into a hazy mosaic of shadows and faint, flickering lights. Her breath emerged in fragile plumes, lingering momentarily before dissolving into the thick, cold air. Around her, the vast silence was punctuated only by the distant echo of sirens and the occasional clang of a stray metal sign swaying in the wind. The wind itself whispered mournfully, slipping beneath her coat and weaving through the loose strands of her damp auburn hair, chilling her skin with an unforgiving touch. Her emerald eyes stared blankly into the fogged horizon, reflecting the fractured city below, fractured much like the pieces of her heart. The weight of betrayal and the shattering truths about Vincenzo pressed down on her with unbearable gravity, a storm within the storm. Every thought pulled her deeper into a void where hope was a fragile ghost, flickering weakly beneath layers of mistrust and looming danger. The vibrant umbrellas dotting the streets below seemed like distant stars, each one a reminder of the protective shield she once wielded but now felt powerless to uphold. Emma reached slowly for the umbrella, tracing a finger along its soaked fabric, a material symbol of her individuality and resistance, now heavy and sodden like the burden she carried. The city, indifferent and cold, seemed to mock her vulnerability. A solitary tear traced a track down her cheek, indistinguishable from the rain, dissolving into the soaked fabric of her collar. Her lips parted, trembling with a voice so faint it might have been the rain itself. How did it all come to this? The distant roar of traffic was swallowed by an approaching rumble of thunder, the heavens violently releasing their fury in torrents that blurred the skyline and sent rivulets cascading down her face. She did not move to protect herself. The wooden swing in the nearby park, a childhood relic and emblem of innocence and hope, rose and fell in the turbulent wind. Its rhythmic creaking echoed like the hollow beating of a heart stretching toward something just beyond reach. Emma swallowed hard, a cold dread pooling in her stomach. She felt every connection she had forged, every trust offered, fracturing under the weight of suspicion and menace. Her relationship with Vincenzo, once an intoxicating dance of danger and passion, now felt like a slow descent into darkness, a spiral she could neither halt nor escape. Her hands trembled as she wrapped her arms around herself, seeking warmth that refused to fill the growing emptiness. The red umbrella stayed collapsed at her side, a symbol now not just of resistance but of isolation. The city's indifferent glow dimmed behind layers of rain and shadow, while Emma's world contracted into an echoing void, every sound fading into a haunting silence. Beneath the weary sky, with the storm raging and the night eternal, Emma sat still, lost, broken, the fragile light within flickering on the verge of extinguishment. And in that suspended breath, the final threads of security unraveled, leaving only raw, suffocating despair. The rain had slackened to a mournful drizzle as Emma stood beneath the fragile glow of a flickering street lamp, the city's relentless hum a distant echo in her numb mind. The vastness of the night sky above seemed to press down on her, heavy and indifferent, draping the streets in a muted veil of shadows and whispered regrets. Her red umbrella once a defiant blaze against the storm hung limp in her hand, its vibrant color dulled by the rain and wear. Emma's gaze fell to its soaked fabric, tracing the familiar rippling folds with trembling fingers. It was a symbol of protection and identity, now frayed like the fragile edges of her resolve. The streets around her were empty, save for the glistening puddles that reflected shattered neon lights, fractured and flickering with every hesitant ripple. Each reflection seemed to hold a ghost of what was lost: trust, certainty, and the love that had begun to unravel beneath the weight of Vincenzo's secrets. Her breath came shallow, a fragile impression fading into the damp air. The memories crashed against her: sweet moments where hope had bloomed amidst the darkness, and cruel betrayals where shadows had swallowed the light whole. The warmth she once found in Vincenzo's dangerous charm now felt like a bitter phantom, a promise broken and drowned in silence. Then, something small stirred beneath the weight of despair, a subtle shift as the echo of a distant melody floated up from a nearby street musician's violin. The haunting notes wove through the drizzle, tender and aching, pulling gently at the edges of her shattered heart. Emma closed her eyes, the music wrapping around her like a whispered embrace. In that melody she hears not just sorrow but the faintest flicker of resiliency, a reminder that even in the deepest night, a single spark can kindle a new dawn. Her fingers closed tightly on the umbrella's handle, gripping not just the fabric but the fragile possibility of something more: courage born from pain, and the urge to rise despite the storm. A memory surfaced of laughter shared under this very umbrella, a fleeting smile in the storm that once held the promise of light. That ghost of a moment ignited a spark within, fragile yet unyielding. The rain softened further, the clouds parting to reveal a solitary star pulsing in the velvet sky, a silent sentinel watching over the tumult below. Emma's lips parted in a breathless whisper, barely audible. Maybe there's still a way. The city exhaled softly around her, as if leaning in to witness her fragile vow. With renewed, hesitant steps, she began to walk, each footfall a quiet defiance, a delicate thread weaving toward awakening and rebirth. The red umbrella lifted once more, catching the pale light, a beacon amid the dimming storm. And in that tender, suspended moment, the story found its first, flickering dawn, one born not of certainty but of fragile hope, timeless and profound. The first gentle threads of dawn wove through the dense fabric of night, softening the relentless shadows that had gripped the city streets for so long. Emma found herself perched atop a concrete ledge, the rain-soaked metropolis sprawling beneath her like a vast, breathing creature awakening from a restless slumber. The sharp edges of buildings blurred quietly in the early light, windows reflecting pale hues of apricot and lavender, colors that had once seemed impossible in a place so steeped in steel and sorrow. Her bright red umbrella, folded and resting beside her, caught a stray beam of light, casting a warm glow that seemed almost out of place against the overtone of worn concrete and wet asphalt. It was the same vibrant symbol she had carried through storms of doubt, humiliation, and danger, a beacon that even the darkest nights could not extinguish. The rush of the city, once a cacophony of fear and suspicion, now whispered with subtle promise. Somewhere far below, a lone saxophone began to play, its mournful notes tracing a melancholy melody that stirred forgotten hope within her chest. Emma closed her eyes, inhaling the damp, cool air rich with the mingling scents of rain, gasoline, and possibility. Her thoughts drifted to Vincenzo, the enigmatic shadow who had both threatened and ignited something wild within. Pain mingled with longing, betrayal shadowed by bittersweet desire. Yet beneath it all, something new began to flicker in the spaces between doubt. A spark of courage born not from certainty but from the raw determination to confront the darkness lingering still. She whispered to the morning air, the words fragile but fierce, "I won't be swallowed by the night." The city around her stirred in quiet, responsive, muted footsteps of early risers, distant horns awakening from their slumber, the gentle tapping of a morning drizzle now easing into a ritual cleansing. The rain song softened, a lullaby that promised not just an end but a beginning. Emma's eyes, so often clouded by fear, now caught the rising light with a tentative brightness. She sensed the shifting tide beneath her skin, the first subtle breath of transformation. The diary's stories and the whirlwind of her tangled emotions had led her to this fragile edge, not a certainty of safety, but a doorway into something uncharted and vital. The crimson fabric of her umbrella stirred slightly in the breeze, a reminder of her resilience and the individuality she guarded fiercely in a world determined to drown her spirit. As the sun edged higher, the vast cityscape seemed to exhale, a fleeting clearing amidst decades of storm. Emma rose from her perch, the chill of the dawn stirring anew the fire within. The journey ahead was daunting, shadowed still by peril and uncertainty, but the first steps had been taken. And in that delicate, shimmering moment where shadow met light and hope dared to bloom, Emma knew that change, though fragile and incomplete, was possible. The city breathed beneath Emma's feet, its relentless pulse washing over the rain-slicked pavement like a tide that could neither be escaped nor resisted. The vivid red of her umbrella sliced through the gray drizzle, a defiant beacon among the indifferent shadows. Tonight, the storm seemed less oppressive, more a cleansing torrent racing toward renewal. Her steps echoed as she approached the unassuming warehouse where whispers said the next piece of the story would unravel the dense cloud of intrigue surrounding Vincenzo. The air tasted of cold iron and damp concrete, blending with the scent of impending rain. Emma's heart pounded in sync with each footfall. Fear still lingered, coiled tight like a serpent ready to strike, but beneath it pulsed an unshakable resolve. Inside the dimly lit space, faces turned toward her, a spectrum of suspicion and curiosity etched into their features. Vincenzo, calm and commanding, leaned casually against a weathered pillar, shadows softening the edges of his sharp suit and charismatic presence. His eyes locked onto hers with a curve of amused recognition. Emma swallowed the tremor in her throat and stepped forward, voice clear and unwavering. "I'm not here to be your pawn or a victim of circumstance. I want to understand the truth." Vincenzo's smile was enigmatic, fraught with danger and invitation. "Bravery suits you, Emma. But the truth is heavier than any story you've chased. Are you prepared to carry it?" Her green eyes burned with both fear and fury. "I've carried enough lies already. It's time someone spoke honestly." The room tensed, the fragile balance of power shifting like a volatile current beneath the surface. As others looked away, reluctant or afraid, Emma's words struck like a clarion call, igniting a flicker of hope among shadows. Outside, the city rain softened, the storm's fury waning into occasional drizzles that shimmered against the awakening dawn. The sky's deep slate gray gave way to a tentative blush of rose and amber, the horizon a fragile promise hanging on the cusp of light. Emma's heart thrummed with the weight and promise of her choice, a courageous stand amidst turf wars of shadow and smoke. This was more than a story now, it was a reckoning. Vincenzo stepped closer, his voice dipped in solemnity and challenge. "Truth can be dangerous, Emma. But sometimes, it redeems." She met his gaze squarely, the red umbrella a vivid splash in her grip. "Then I choose redemption over fear." As the first sunbeams broke through the clouds, catching in the slick streets like shards of liquid fire, Emma felt a surge of clarity, hope tempered by hardship, strength born through confrontation. The city's heart beat steady beneath the dawn, and she stood poised at the precipice, ready to navigate the perilous labyrinth between shadows and light. The red umbrella lifted against the awakening sun, a symbol not just of protection but of the fierce, unyielding light blossoming quietly within her. And in that fragile, luminous moment, Emma glimpsed the path ahead, uncertain, dangerous, but hers to claim. Beneath the breaking sky, the journey toward truth and transformation had truly begun. The city sky bloomed with the first light of dawn, a crimson and gold fire slowly setting the dark clouds ablaze and dissolving the shadows that had clung tenaciously through the long night. Emma stood on the rooftop overlooking the awakening streets, her silhouette striking against the glowing horizon. The rain had ceased, beads of water glistening like fragile jewels on the edges of her vibrant red umbrella, now closed at her side, a symbol not only of protection but of her own indomitable spirit. Her breath came slow and steady, warmed by the fragile sun cutting through the cool morning air. The city, once a cold, indifferent maze, now pulsed with new life, neon signs cooling into morning hues, pedestrians stirring with the tentative hope of a new day. The storm had passed, and with it the suffocating weight of fear and doubt that had bound her so fiercely. Emma's eyes, luminous and unwavering, reflected the fiery skyline, a mirror to the strength that had blossomed within her. The journey through darkness, the deadly allure of Vincenzo's world, the ache of betrayal and desire, all overlapped in a complex mosaic of pain and growth. But now, she was no longer a captive of that night. She was its master, ready to claim the truth. She reached into her coat and felt the reassuring weight of her notebook, the stories penned within its pages now a weapon forged in courage and clarity. The red umbrella, once a fragile shield, now stood folded yet radiant, echoing the fiery resilience burning through her heart. Below, the old wooden swing in the communal park swung gently in the morning breeze, its creak a soft hymn to innocence reclaimed and futures reborn. It was a symbol she carried deep inside, a poignant reminder that hope, though fragile, is as enduring as love itself. As the city stirred, a solitary figure emerged from across the rooftop's edge. Vincenzo, his presence shadowed and undeniable. Their eyes met. There was no fear now, only a fierce recognition of two souls laid bare in the fragile dawn. "Emma," his voice was low, edged with respect and complexity, "you've changed the game. But this it's no longer just about survival. It's about truth." She lifted her chin, radiant with unshakable purpose. "Truth and love, Vincenzo. And I demand both. No more shadows. No more lies." The tension between them simmered, charged with respect and raw honesty. This was no longer a dance of danger and deception, but a reckoning, a moment where masks fell away and futures were forged in unyielding light. As the city stretched awake beneath the expansive sky, Emma and Vincenzo stood poised on that rooftop, not as adversaries, but as equals, bound by vulnerability and strength, by passion and redemption. The red umbrella caught the first rays of the sun, a beacon cutting through the clearing storm, a symbol reborn of hope and unbreakable spirit. Calm, resolute, and transformed, Emma stepped forward, ready to face the final act, not with fear, but with fearless grace. The skyline awaited, endless and radiant, as the story's truth unfolded with the promise of justice, healing, and love born from the ashes of night. The soft glow of dawn stretched over the city, casting long, gentle shadows across the quiet streets where Emma now moved with deliberate grace. Her steps were slow, almost reverent, as if treading sacred ground. The rain had finally ceased, leaving behind a world cleansed of its fury, reflecting a fragile sky that shimmered with pastel hues of pink and lavender. Her bright red umbrella, once a symbol of her defiance amid chaos, was now carried loosely in her hand, its vividness shimmering softly in the tender light. She paused at the edge of a small park, where a solitary tree stood, its branches swaying gently in a light morning breeze, leaves whispering stories of resilience. Emma's gaze lingered on the tree's gnarled limbs, a mirror to the tumult and growth within her. The steady rhythm of her heartbeat, previously tumultuous and frantic, now settled into a tranquil, steady cadence, a testament to the quiet strength she had found within. Clad in her simple, urban attire, her auburn hair glinted in the golden sunlight, each strand hinting at the fiery spirit that refused to be extinguished. Her bright green eyes, once clouded with doubt and fear, now held a profound serenity, a clarity born from the tumult of her past struggles and her courageous stand for truth. In her hand, she clutched a worn but carefully kept notebook, the pages filled with her reflections, her battles fought, and her lessons learned. The words inside were no longer just ink on paper. They were fragments of her soul, resilient and raw, yet peaceful. As she walked further into the park, her steps slowed, and her gaze was drawn skyward where the clouds parted slightly, revealing a ribbon of blue in endless promise of new beginnings. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers, reminders that even after the fiercest storms, life renews itself. Across the horizon, the city's silhouette was calm, bathed in the gentle glow of a rising sun. The relentless chaos of yesterday was replaced by a quiet and spoken understanding. Emma felt her shoulders relax, the persistent tension melting away as the serenity seeped into her bones. She lifted her hand, the notebook still clutched softly, and with a slow, deliberate gesture, she opened it to a blank page, the beginning of a new chapter. The world around her was still, tender, and ripe with possibility. Her face, illuminated by the dawn's first light, carried a faint, contented smile, a symbol of her journey's evolution. In that moment, she understood. The storm inside her had subsided into a gentle ripple. The fight was over, but her story was just beginning. A future where love, truth, and hope reigned supreme, born from the ashes of chaos and doubt. The city stretched endlessly before her, waiting patiently for her next move, her heart open, her spirit renewed, ready to write her own destiny. The urban landscape shimmered with the gentle glow of dawn, casting a warm, diffuse light over the quiet streets. Emma moved with a newfound grace, her steps unhurried, guided by a serenity that shimmered beneath her composed exterior. Her vibrant red umbrella, once a symbol of her defiance amid chaos, was now tucked into her bag, a gentle reminder of the storms she had weathered and the peace she painstakingly reclaimed. The city, its endless veins pulsing with life, seemed to echo her internal transformation. Shadows stretched long and soft, and the air was infused with the scent of rain-washed concrete and blooming hope. Light flirted with the edges of buildings, igniting windows and reflecting off wet pavement, a mirror to her own newfound clarity. Emma's bright green eyes, reflective pools of resilience, caught her own gaze in a storefront mirror. Her face, once tensed with fear and doubt, now bore an authentic smile, soft, genuine, the kind born of acceptance. Her hands, steady and purposeful, held her notebook, the pages filled with her journey, now a testament to strength and truth. She paused at the edge of the park, where a solitary tree stood sentinel, its branches stretching outward like open arms embracing her new beginning. The rustling leaves whispered softly, a lullaby of renewal, their gentle sway a dance of silent reconciliation between past wounds and future hopes. The remnants of her storm, the betrayal, the danger, the love and loss, all woven into the fabric of her spirit. Now, they shimmered as a luminous tapestry, threaded with forgiveness and the quiet dignity of her journey. Her fingers brushed the smooth cover of her journal, then she opened it to a blank page, a fresh start, a universe of possibilities waiting to be written. The dawn's warm light bathed her in a glow of unspoken promise. Behind her, the city awakened slowly, each step echoing a vow, an unbreakable vow that, no matter how dark the night, dawn always follows. Emma took a deep breath, inhaling deeply of the crisp, hopeful air. Her shoulders relaxed, her heart unburdened. The storm had passed. Peace now dwelled in the silent spaces between her beats. And as she turned to face the rising sun, the city's endless horizon stretched before her, a canvas of infinite potential, a testament that love, resilience, and truth could transcend even the most shadowed depths. The city's horizon glowed with the muted embrace of dusk, casting a gentle amber hue over the bustling streets, now quieted after the storm's fierce tumult. Emma walked slowly along the rain-slicked avenue, her vibrant red umbrella folded and hanging loosely from her hand, no longer needed as the clouds parted, revealing the first slivers of a clear sky. Her footsteps seemed lighter, each step a soft rhythm of liberation, the weight of past chaos easing into a serene, almost sacred calm. The once relentless downpour had faded into a whisper of mist, and the air carried a renewed freshness, damp yet pure, as if nature itself was exhaling a deep sigh of relief. The neon reflections shimmered subdued and gentle in a widened puddle, a fractured mirror of the city's dark and radiant Korea, city that had endured and reborn. Emma's eyes, bright and filled with an unspoken peace, traced the familiar contours of her surroundings, buildings standing tall yet welcoming, streets alive with quiet whispers of hope. The flickering streetlights now gleamed softly in the twilight, their gentle glow a symbol of illumination, not just of the city but of her journey, of the shadows she had conquered. She paused at the corner, where a solitary tree stretched its limbs skyward, branches heavy with newly sprouted leaves, a testament to resilience, growth reborn from the depths of despair. Her fingers brushed the rough bark gently, a silent gesture of gratitude for the strength she had rediscovered. In her pocket, her hand felt the smooth, familiar feel of the notebook, its pages carrying her memories of pain and triumph, of love and loss, now transformed into a testament of profound resilience. She looked up, the scarlet streak of the sunset bleeding across the sky, a delicate reminder that even after the fiercest storms, beauty persists. She took a deep breath, the cool air filling her lungs, invigorating her spirit. The rain had washed away the last remnants of chaos. What remained was a quiet, unshakable truth: she was finally free. Her gaze lifted to the horizon, where the sun was beginning its slow ascent into a new dawn. The clouds parted with a gentle sigh, revealing a sky painted in shades of hope, patience etched in every fiber of her being. Laughter, soft, true, unburdened, fled her lips in a whispered smile. In that luminous, silent moment, Emma was no longer a loss-bound survivor but a harbinger of renewal, standing at the threshold of a world ripe with infinite possibility. The city's heartbeat echoed softly in her own, a steady thrum of resilience and love, the eternal dance of shadows and light. And as her figure melded into the awakening city, a single image lingered, her solitary, unyielding silhouette against the dawn, a living testament that hope not only survived but bloomed anew, eternally eternal, in the quiet harmony of peace and freedom. What would you have done if you discovered a secret in the rain? Share your thoughts below.